Hey, I'm here with my friend Les. We're standing underneath a pine tree because Les has a very interesting story to share about pine pollen.
Yeah, so a couple of weeks ago, about a month ago, I had my testosterone tested. I'd been reading about pine pollen, been quite fascinated about it the last maybe year or so. I remember being a little bit heartbroken. I might be a little overstating it. Last year when I saw some posts on it was pine pollen season. I hadn't done any harvesting, and I wanted to do that. So
Yeah.
this year I was right on top of it. Got out the first weekend it was available to us,
Yeah.
and just went nuts for about 8 or 10 hours. Created some tinctures, and then a month ago I had my testosterone test, and I came in a very average for my age test. The number was 24. And so I went on my tincture that I'd made, let sit for 30 days. Thanks to you. I was going to do 2 weeks, but you told me do a full moon cycle. Did that. Did my tincture for a couple weeks. Took 6 days off. Went and got retested, and I got a phone call from my doctor, and he said, "I want to see you."
Right.
And he didn't tell me why. And so I was like, "I'm a pretty healthy dude. What's going on here?" Long story short, he pulled out the report and he thought I was on something synthetic because
Right.
my testosterone had spiked so much. So I'd basically doubled my testosterone to twice of what is natural in a man of my age, my mid 40s. And I have about a third more testosterone than the average 25-year-old. So I was at the Stampeders game the other night going,
Wow.
my testosterone, I surf couches, and my testosterone is higher than these guys who their job is testosterone, right? So
Right.
really fascinating result.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. So pine pollen works, and if you want to dive more into it, there's all kinds of resources, including a fantastic book by Stephen Herod Buhner, who's one of the herbalists that has brought to this forefront of the benefits of pine pollen and how it contains this bioidentical testosterone. And I mean, it's one thing to kind of read it in a book and to hear about it, and even for yourself, right? Knowing, okay, does this work? But to truly experience it, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that's just one aspect to it. You lent me that book, and I'm about halfway through it now after 3 or 4 days. And it's opened up this whole new area that I want to study. The pine tree itself is an amazing life form, and the benefits of pine pollen far exceed just the testosterone. As a matter of fact, during my test, my cholesterol came back a little bit high,
Right.
and I've read that pine pollen itself can actually reduce that. So that's the next test that I'm going to throw at my doctor and have him pick up the phone and say, "How did you do this?" And so I'm using pine pollen to also reduce my cholesterol over the next 60 days, and I'm doing that with tests too, numbers.
Cool, that's awesome. Well, I just wanted to pick up a couple props. Les, you'd been buying the Pine Pollen Powder in past and enjoying it. And if you read that book or just learning a little bit about pine pollen, so there's the powder itself, which is great. It's a super nutritive, like you say. Has so many properties and benefits to it. But if you're really looking for that boost of testosterone, it's got to come from tincture form, because that's the most bioavailable. It's almost like an instant delivery system into the body. Will help spike those levels.
Right.
So this is where you need to be cautious. I mean, a boy or a guy in their 20s already naturally has a higher level of testosterone, and it's very well known. It's common as women, they go through menopause, and there's that decrease kind of shift in their hormones. But men go through it too. We go through andropause. We have our own shift, and generally testosterone does begin to decline as you move forward in those decades. So earlier on, you don't want to be pumping the pine pollen tincture.
Right.
It's later when you're trying to balance those things out and bring the testosterone back up. So the powder is great as a good nutritive. You can have that in your shakes, your smoothies, we put it in pancakes in our family, etc. But the pine pollen tincture is a great way to go. And why we wanted to stand out in front of a pine tree here is, actually there's one right above your head, is we're after those catkins, and this is it's beyond the time. These have already spent, that pollen has been released, and you'll see here on the package, when it's fresh, when it's ready to go and it's full of pollen, that's the state that you're looking for it in. And you'd done the technique of just removing those catkins completely, dropping them into alcohol that extracts the pollen, And let's see your tincture. You got it?
Yeah, so
with you here?
That's actually a good point. Is by going sublingual, my understanding of this, my very limited understanding, sublingual, you bypass the digestive tract, which speeds up the amount or the how the pollen gets into your system. So just a little bit under the tongue, a little bit for my friend Malcolm. Feel the power.
And it's delicious.
It is delicious.
Yeah, it's really good. So about how much were you hitting the tincture during that time?
This bottle, in those 2 weeks, I went through one of these bottles, which is probably a little heavy. What I understand is, you know, two of these droppers a day, 3 times a day is plenty for, depending on what state your current testosterone's at. For my age group, that's kind of where it's at. But yeah, I went pretty hard on that first couple of weeks, which is why I wanted to take that week off. But that's the thing that amazed me, was how high it remained even after coming off it for 6 days.
Yeah. So there you have it. Pine pollen, the testosterone booster.
Get on it. Get on it.
Right on.